Hello Year 9, my name is Mr Pearce. I'm Head of Economics here at Northgate. I'd like to take a few moments to explain to you what GCSE Economics might be about so that you can consider it as part of your option choices for GCSEs as you start Year 10. Now there's a lot to cover, so without further ado, I'll get started with this short presentation. So firstly, what is involved with GCSE Economics? Now there's a common misconception that economics is all about money, but actually that's not true. GCSE Economics is mostly about choices, about the choices that people make when they go about their daily lives. We have to understand that we are all part of the economy, every single one of us. Whether we don't have a lot of money to spend or we do, whether we work or whether we don't, whether we buy or whether we sell, every one of us is part of the economy and it affects every single part of our lives. What we do in economics is try to understand how those decisions affect our lives and the individuals and families around us. It is also important to understand that in economics and in the economy, the government and businesses play a very big role in influencing our actions and our choices. In economics, we study how governments and producers or businesses make their decisions and how those might impact our lives. Now, there's a lot of choices made by individuals, businesses and governments. In GCSE Economics, we start to think about what those choices might involve and how those choices are made. Ultimately, we're trying to understand how economies make choices about resources and how they do that using what we refer to as markets. Now, it's always interesting to understand how the course will be organised. Now, economics is a subject that is naturally divided into two different components. Those two different components are microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now in Year 10, our focus is on what we call Component 1, which is microeconomics. Now Component 1 is assessed entirely in exam paper 1 that you sit at the end of Year 11. That paper is called Introduction to Economics. Now in Component 1, or what we would commonly referred to as microeconomics, there are two broad topics. There's what we call the Introduction to Economics topic and the role of markets and money. Now, in the Introduction of Economics topic, we look at two short topics called the main economic groups and factors of production and something we call the basic economic problem. Now, this part of the course, we're investigating how resources are used by economies and how they address the basic economic problem of what we refer to as scarcity. How do we allocate the scarce resources that the world has to the best fulfillment of individuals' wants and needs? We only have a certain amount of resources on our planet. We need to think very carefully about where we should be best using those resources for the best outcomes for society. That's what we will study for a very short period at the beginning of Component 1 or microeconomics in the topic we call Introduction to Economics. Now, following on from that, in Year 10, we start the bigger part of the microeconomics course, the role of markets and money. So at this point, we'll start to think about what a market is and what a market means and what job a market is trying to achieve. We'll then start looking at the components of a market and how they work. So demand, supply, how they interact together to influence the price of a good or a service, ultimately having a huge impact on what we are able to buy and how much of something we're able to buy and who is able to buy. Those things are all determined by the market forces driven towards the allocation of price within a market. We'll then look at competition between businesses and whether we consider that competition to be good or bad, looking at issues such as monopoly. A monopoly, not a board game, well, it is a board game, but in our subject we refer to a monopoly as a single firm who has entire dominance over a market, a bit like Google does in the market for web searches. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea, having a single firm dominating a market in such a way? That's covered in the topic competition. We'll then follow that up with a topic on production, which looks at how businesses go about producing in the most efficient way possible. Businesses are driven by the incentive of profit, and how do they achieve that profit level? Well, really, they need to be producing in the most efficient way possible, and we'll look at how that happens in the topic production. Following on from that, we look at the labour market. So this answers some really important questions like, how come a footballer gets paid so much and a nurse doesn't? How come some people earn more than others? Why are there discrepancies in the labour market? Why do some people unfairly seem to be getting paid more than others who seem to work harder? All of that can be illustrated and explained using a concept we call the labour market. And then finally, we look at a topic called the role of money and financial markets. At this point, we are looking at the role of the banking system and how money plays a role in our lives, helping to influence our decisions. Now, this is microeconomics, all covered in year 10 in component 1. Now in year 11, we'll then look at the second component of the course, component 2. Now this one is traditionally called macroeconomics, but we'll call it component 2 for the sake of the exam board structure. And in macroeconomics, or component 2, we look at, first of all, economic objectives and the role of the government. Now in our country and in most Western countries, and in fact most countries around the world, the government plays a very important role in trying to influence the direction of their country by achieving key, what we call macroeconomic objectives. Things like economic growth, low unemployment, a fair and even distribution of income. Now in this country, we've seen a vast increase in the disparities between those who do and those who do not. All of these issues are covered and understood in an economics course, and we'll certainly be looking at those issues in component 2. Price stability, or what we commonly refer to as inflation, a big hot topic at the moment in 2023, a key area of something we'll consider in year 11. And how do governments fix these problems? How do they get unemployment statistics to fall? How do they get inflation levels to stabilise? How do they even the distribution of income between the rich and the poor? How do they get an economy driving towards growth? Well, they can use techniques we refer to as fiscal policy or monetary policy. That's a government mechanism of controlling the direction of the economy via the workings of what we call the Bank of England. And we'll also be considering what we call supply side policy, another component of government, another example of a government tool that can be used to direct the economy in a certain direction. We'll then switch our attention away from maybe the UK economy and looking more on an international scale and considering international trade and the global economy. So things like trading relationships between countries, selling exports and imports, something we call the balance of payments, which is a method of measuring how much trade a country does with each other, the all-important topic of exchange rates and how they affect our lives and how they can influence the sort of products we buy, and a huge issue, the issue of globalisation, certainly a topic that we spend some time on at the end of year 11 in component 2. Now, I don't know if you noticed there, but both component 1 and component 2 both come with their own exam paper. So component 2, the exam paper is exam paper 2, called National and International Economics. That's an hour and 30 minutes or 80 marks, and the other paper is an hour and 30 minutes and 80 marks. So here's a quick summary. So we have 2 papers to sit at the end of GCSE economics in year 11. So exam paper 1, Introduction to Economics, an hour and 30 minutes. Exam paper 2, the National and International Economics, an hour and 30 minutes again. Each paper is weighted evenly, so that's 50% on each. Now, the 2 question papers are structured in exactly the same way. They have 20 multiple choice questions in them, a short case study with short and medium response questions, and a question to write what we call extended writing, a question that extends to 6 marks. So the biggest mark question you'll have to do in GCSE economics is worth 6 marks. Now, something else to consider when thinking about GCSE economics is the skills needed to be a good economist. It's important to note that both of the question papers will be assessing some mathematical skills or quantitative skills. So if you're a bit mathsy, you've got the ability to flex that muscle and you'd like to use that in a subject that stretches you and challenges you a bit, then economics might be the one for you. So we ask students to carry out calculations, so percentage calculations, percentage changes, working out interest, calculations of profits and costs and revenues. All of that would be done with a calculator in the exam. Calculating incomes, what people earn, gross earnings, net pay. We also use quite a lot of graphs in economics. It's the exciting part of our subject. We use lots of different graphs to illustrate concepts, and you need to be comfortable in drawing graphs from data, including what we call supply and demand curves. And we will also interpret data too. So whether that be in graphical form or numerical form or chart form or pie charts, we'll take data from all around us, from around the world, from around the UK, current data, hot off the press, released that morning, and we'll try and interpret those figures, try and work out what's going on with the world, try and work out what's changing, what's going up, what's going down. So figures for unemployment, exports and imports. You have to be able to interpret that data and understand what is going on around us. Okay, now I'm going to move on to a couple of example topics, things that we might look at in economics, try and interest you a little bit more in the nitty-gritty of what we might do lesson by lesson. Now, economics is a very current affairs subject, and we're in 2023 at the moment, and one of the biggest issues we are facing in the UK is the cost of living crisis. Things getting increasingly more expensive. Tomatoes running out on our shelves, no more peppers, no more cucumbers. The price of petrol, the price of fuel going up to extraordinarily high levels. Now, this cost of living crisis is putting lots of people, particularly poor people, in a very difficult position in our country, those on lower incomes. Why is this happening? What is the main cause of these problems? Can it all be blamed on Putin's aggression in Ukraine? Or are there other things at play here? Maybe Brexit is a factor. Maybe supply chain pinches as a result of COVID are a factor here. Why are things getting more expensive in 2023, and why is inflation so high? How does this impact our lives? How will my life be affected if prices get more expensive for things? How will society be affected if price levels start to go up? Now, one of the things we're seeing in 2023, and we often see when price levels increase, is industrial action by unions striking against what they deem as unfair pay offers. It's disrupting everyone's lives, whether it be on the trains or in nursing. We are seeing industrial action, strike action taking place up and down our country. These are all issues that we would study in economics. But the thing we're probably really interested in is what can we do about this? How can we change the situation? None of this is good news. How can the government address these issues? Can it cut taxes? Should it increase taxes? What can be done? Now, I don't have the answers, but certainly in an economics course, we'll start to think about what those solutions may be. And that's an example topic number one. And a brief example topic number two. A huge issue that's affecting our lives all the time is climate change. And there's lots of factors driving climate change. The industrial production in Western countries, energy production, but also our overuse of cars. Emissions from burning fossil fuels in our own vehicles. Now, why are we still polluting so much? Why are we relying on our cars so much? This is surely an issue that we need to be addressing from a consumer's point of view. What impact is global warming having on our lives? Should we be more aware of these issues? The issues of climate change affecting weather conditions and the ability to grow crops and disruptions to food supply and impact on natural disasters and how those can have impacts on countries and their ability to stabilise the lives of their citizens. Global warming is affecting lots of people in some pretty devastating ways. We should be more aware of these issues, certainly something in economics we would study at some length. Now, I'm not saying it's all down to us using our cars, but it's definitely a factor. So should governments be a bit more tuned into trying to stop us using our cars so much? What about congestion charges in city centres? What about stopping us driving petrol cars into built up areas? What about free bikes for everybody? Maybe that's the best solution. Offer people the opportunity to pick up bikes outside their house and drive them to cycle them, to wherever they need to go. Or maybe electric cars are the option. Maybe make every Tesla much cheaper, or whatever electric car might be around. Maybe that's the solution there. Now, these are all issues we would study in economics, and you can see they're two very different topics there, all coming up in different parts of the course. It's a very current affairs related topic. It's a very current affairs related subject, and we will always be talking about things that are in the news. Nearly finally, some other things to consider. We do consider issues all over the place across the economics course, things like poverty, climate change, global relations between different countries. Politics is a big part of our course, and we'll certainly touch on political issues, crime and the impact on society of things like unemployment, the role of businesses in our lives and how those businesses can influence our decisions and pay us better or pay us worse, offer us good choice, offer us not a very good choice when we buy our products. Decision making, we've been talking about that a lot in this presentation. It's a big part of what we consider in an economics course. You need to be able to think logically. This is a subject which relies on evidence and thinking logically and reasoning solutions out. And we also think a lot about the future, try and predict what might happen around the corner, try and predict what might happen, where the next crisis might come from, how we might solve that next crisis. Lots of things to think about on a course as exciting and dynamic as economics. Finally, where can economics take you? Well, economics is a qualification that will only ever open doors. There are so many businesses, employers, career opportunities out there that require individuals with the skills you can build up having studied economics. So whether it be journalism, working in the civil service, working for the government, working in finance, working in banking, becoming a manager, working in the military, strategists, quantity surveying, working with data analysis, working in charities, working in academia. And whether, I could go on, there are lots of job opportunities that arise from people with a skill set based in economics. And we know that businesses out there really highly value graduates, people who've got economics qualifications in the workplace. You can see there some graphics illustrating the salaries that individuals might get when they have certain skills and certain qualifications. And we can see for female graduates, medicine rewards female graduates with very highly rewarded salaries, but economics comes in second, ahead of maths, ahead of business, ahead of law. And for male graduates, economics offers the best salary opportunities out there. Now, this tells me that the workplace really demands the skills of economics graduates and people with economic skills, and it rewards them accordingly. Now, getting a good job isn't all about getting the best paid job. It's about what you can contribute towards society. And people with economics qualifications contribute a lot towards society and help change it for the better. And that's why I think every student should be considering taking a qualification like economics. Now, this concludes the end of this short presentation. I thank you for listening. If you have any other questions you'd like to ask about what an economics GCSE might involve, then feel free to email me on the email address on the screen. And there is a short quiz you can take. There's a QR code on the side of the screen there that just provides a little bit more information about what might be involved with economics GCSE. Thank you very much.